I get to wait for the countdown clock to tell we can really start. They wait till everybody's in their seats and then they get it ready to go. Maybe. Mission Control, can you hear me? Yes. We now are officially able to start the meeting. It's June 5th, 2017. I'll call to order the Arvada City Council meeting. Call upon Mayor Pro Tem Bob Pfeiffer.
Yes, would everyone join me in a moment of silent reflection? And now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. Next, Kristen Rush, if you'll verify that all 7 of us sitting up here really are who we say we are and we're doing what we say we're doing.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Allard.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember McGough.
Here. Next, we have the minutes of the May 8th and May 15th City Council meetings. Any changes, corrections? Seeing none, they will stand approved as presented. We have a couple of recognitions. I'll call upon Councilmember Don Allard to lead us off.
Mr. Kraus, I see you in the audience. Tonight, the council wishes to recognize John Kraus for 10 years of service on the Arvada Planning Commission. John was first appointed in June 2007. During John's years as commissioner, the city experienced considerable growth and changes in the community. Many controversial items came before the Planning Commission during these years, and John always looked at the issues objectively and from the perspective with much experience, contributing to sound decisions and the betterment of his community. Excuse my voice. John also shared his wisdom and experience with new members of the Commission and was an asset to the Commission and the city. We want to thank you and commend you, John, for your years of service, and I have a plaque that reads, Appreciation for 10 years of service, the Arvada Planning Commission, June 2007 to April 2017. Thank you from the Arvada City Council and members of the Arvada Planning Commission. Dated this 5th day of June 2006. Would you come to the podium, John? I wish to add my personal thanks. John has also served in my part of the city for a number of years on the Lake Harbor Homeowner Association. It was really a betterment of that activity.
Thank you, Don.
Don, you wish to say a few words?
Sure. Well, I just want to thank the council for appointing me all those 10 years ago and the reappointments that have happened since. I have to thank 2 people that really make the Planning Commission run. Joni Brown, Randall Sampson, without which there's no way the commission would be able to function. Also say that I was really lucky early on. I got to serve early in my tenure with people like Vesta Miller, Dwayne Woodard, Ed Rothschild, and was able to learn so much from all of them and would not have been able to do what I did without their help. So I really appreciate it. And thank you to the council.
Thank you, John. And we will be adding your name to the list of great commissioners that we've had. Thank you for your years of service. You've given good guidance to City Council. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, I'll call upon Councilmember Nancy Ford for recognition.
The Jefferson County Council on Aging and Seniors Resource Center honored 2 local citizens for outstanding volunteerism to our community. The Arvada City Council would like to recognize Norma Brown and Marlis Halbenson for their volunteer work. Norma Brown, 93 years old, she has volunteered 16 hours per month for 9.5 years. Norma enlisted in the Navy in 1945 at the age of 20 and served 2 years as a yeoman. Thursdays, Norma is the face of the Apex Community Recreation Center in Arvada. She handles the front desk as receptionist, answering the phone, checking participants in for class, answering questions about classes, and giving tours of the center for those who have never visited. Norma also serves on the Senior Council, assisting in the planning of Apex Center activities and classes. Asked why she volunteers, Norma replied, "Because that's just what you do." Asked about her longevity and energy, she attributes it to good genes, staying away from fast food, and a little gin and orange juice each day. Marla Salbison, 74 years old, she has volunteered 40 hours per month for 25 years as president of the Maple Grove Grange. One member of the Grange stated, "If Marlis hadn't stepped in and done so much, the Maple Grove Grange, which is a meeting place for many clubs and organizations in Arvada, would have closed." Besides keeping the building open and in good condition, on behalf of the Grange, Marlis collects gifts for nursing homes, gives school directories, collects food for Jeffco Action Center, sponsors a Cub Scout pack, takes flowers to older folks, and picks up road trash. Marlis also started and organized a ladies' Red Hat group and picks up members who cannot drive to get them to the meetings. And I just wanted to say that I was at this celebration, and it was very inspirational. It's a joy to see people volunteering, and it's just really great to see older folks stay in the game. And if Norma and Marlis are in the audience, I don't see you right now, but I'd love for you to come down. She is. There's Norma. And we have two plaques here, both in recognition of your outstanding volunteerism and being named a 2017 Senior Hero for both women. And also, Jim Whitfield, who's on the Apex board, would like to come down and say something to you, Norma.
You're just, Mr. Mayor and members of council, thank you again. It's a pleasure, obviously, for a subject of this nature, right, to be in front of you on Norma's behalf. And I did have something, but you hit it very well in reviewing everything that Norma's done. And in fact, the hours of volunteerism that she's put in at age 93, right, totals up to about 1,642 volunteer hours. I guess that's one thing I wanted to get read into the notes. And she's just one of many seniors that shine at our at our district in terms of how they devote themselves to our community. And it's certainly great that Norma gets this acknowledgement, as she's very much deserved it. And Norma's not here this evening, but in her place, the two of us will be more than happy to get her plaque to her. Thank you.
We have so many people who give in so many ways to this community, and certainly the seniors who have been recognized as senior heroes is a great program. Having gone, as other council members have in the past, to that ceremony, it is very heartwarming and uplifting. Next, we have public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council at this time? Yes, if you'll come down to the microphone and give us your name, and you have 3 minutes. We won't start until you start, so you don't have to run.
Thank you for this opportunity to provide a brief overview about Alzheimer's disease and the challenges it creates for families, including many in our community. My name's Michelle Nelson. I've lived in Arvada for more than 30 years, and Alzheimer's has personally touched my families. Since June is Alzheimer's Brain and Awareness Month, it's the goal of the Colorado chapter of the Alzheimer's Association to raise awareness for the disease and the challenges it poses. First, it's important to note that Alzheimer's disease is the #1 killer of Americans and the only leading disease among the top 10 without a prevention, treatment, or cure. Here's a few specifics. There's estimated 5.5 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, including 69,000 Coloradans. By 2020, there will be more Coloradans with Alzheimer's than there are seats in the Denver Broncos Mile High Stadium. By 2050, we project that the number of Americans with Alzheimer's will top 13.8 million. Today, there's one new Alzheimer's diagnosis of Americans every 66 seconds. Now let me explain who is most affected by Alzheimer's disease. First, there's the people with the diagnosis. 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's, about 3.3 million, are women. It's a devastating disease that can last up to 20 years with the progressive declines in health and the ability for the person to function independently. African Americans are twice as likely as whites to be diagnosed, and Latinos are 50% more likely than whites to be diagnosed. And then there's the caregivers. In Colorado, nearly 250,000 people volunteer their time, energy, and resources to care for their loved ones, making significant personal sacrifices, including direct financial support, time away from work, or neglecting their own personal health. Finally, there's the cost of nearly $1 for every $5 in Medicaid funds spent on people with Alzheimer's and other dementias. By 2020, that's projected to be $1 in every $3. I'll close with my remarks to you as public officials. Today, we're hoping that you will use your communications with your constituents to raise the awareness of this disease during the month of June by adopting a proclamation recognizing June as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. The Alzheimer's Association plays an important role in Colorado communities because we provide valuable educational information on this disease, offer programs for persons with a diagnosis as well as their caregivers, coordinate support groups throughout the state, and provide training to the medical community and first responders, such as police and fire departments, on techniques for dealing with the unique circumstances they can encounter in providing emergency services for persons with dementia. And all of their programs and services to families are at no cost. Thank you for your consideration of this request.
Thank you, and if you'll give information to Kristen Rush, our city clerk, we can look at doing a proclamation.
Great, I've got all of it for you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Anyone else wish to address City Council at this time? Any of you, sir, if you'll state your, I almost didn't recognize you. How about taking your hat off and showing some respect in these chambers?
My hair's going away, and I just
Oh,
got
it
done
certainly is.
gardening.
Oh, and by the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Nathan Mudd, 5716 Yarrow Street, Arvada. I just came today. Farmers Market started yesterday, and really, thank you guys. But staff, I just wanted to say this was the smoothest year that we've ever had. The parking, I'm talking about the permitting process. The permitting process went so well this year, from parks to parking and everybody in between. It was just much better than we've ever experienced in the past, and it's our 9th year. We've been working for 9 years, and I think we finally nailed it. Parking went really well yesterday.
That garage might be helping a little bit.
What's that?
The garage might
The
be
garage
helping.
is definitely helping a little bit. That's one of the things that we had to put in the permit, or that was in the permit that we have to do, is we're directing traffic, or we're directing the customers to go and park in the garage. So hopefully we can have a nice awareness campaign so people will start doing that. But really, 9th year, I just want to say thank you. Come out, enjoy it, and it's going to go smooth this year. It's already going smooth, and that's it. Thank you, guys.
Very good. When, so there doesn't sound like we're too familiar. Nathan used to work for me in my law firm as a law clerk and then as a young attorney. And he quickly saw the error of his ways and went into this kind of work full time. And it's been great to see the growth of it. My wife and I were down there on Sunday, and just to see people's faces, and the kids and the families and the senior citizens and everybody who was just, they all had their little bags and were loading up on on
do.
fruits and vegetables and all the other fun stuff that goes on down there. The restaurants were doing land office business. It brings us great energy to Old Town, and as my wife and I were talking, we reflect back on 25, 30 years ago, and Sunday mornings were pretty dead in Old Town,
Yeah.
and this is pretty doggone exciting. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know your wife Kim does all the heavy lifting. And
She does.
So it's
She
a
does, and
great
I get to
event.
come here.
That's good. Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address council at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion. At this time, move on to the consent agenda. We have several items, one of which we'll be dealing with separately. Our consent agenda items that we'll address immediately are R17053, which is a resolution authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Hanan Equipment Company in an amount not to exceed approximately $170,600 for the purchase of an excavator. The second one is R17054, which is a resolution authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Dawson Infrastructure Solutions in an amount not to exceed approximately $69,000 for the purchase of one 2017 workhorse easement machine. Third one is R17055, a resolution authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to LL Johnson Distributing Company in an amount not to exceed approximately $165,000 for the purchase of turf maintenance equipment. Next one is R17056, a resolution authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Dellenbach Motors in an amount not to exceed approximately $50,000 for the purchase of two 2017 Chevrolet Colorado pickup trucks. The fifth one is R17057, a resolution authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Spradley Bar Ford in an amount not to exceed approximately $73,000 for the purchase of three 2017 Ford F-150 pickup trucks. And the final one that we'll deal with under the consent agenda is R17058, a resolution authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Spradley Bar Ford in an amount not to exceed approximately $181,000 for the purchase of five 2017 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles. Do I have a motion on those items on the consent agenda? Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that Resolution R17-053 through R17-058 be approved.
Motions for approval of those items on the consent agenda. All votes are cast. Those 6 items pass unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll take up R17059, a resolution authorizing the second budget amendment to the 2017 operating and capital budget in the amount of $2,504,568 to fund the 2016-2017 fiscal operating deficit of the Arvada Center and to increase the cash transfer with an equal reimbursement. Mr. Bill Ray, Acting City Manager, what's your
Thank you, Mr.
information
Mayor,
on this?
members of council. Finance Director Brian Archer is prepared to offer some explanation and background for this item.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, thank you for the opportunity. We'll take this in 2 parts. The first part being a true cash transfer related to the operating deficit of the Arvada Center from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. As part of the agreement, the city agreed at the end of each fiscal year to revisit the Arvada Center's operating deficit if they showed progress, and if the city of Arvada had the capability, we would try to help offset that. We have somewhat good news on this item. Their original estimate was about $498,000. They're coming back to us for about $404,000. We will pay for this with a reimbursement that we received from the urban renewal from a loan that we made to them a little over 2 years ago of $2 million. The second item relates to a budget and accounting difference related to the nonprofit moving from the city to a nonprofit status. When the Arvada Center was part of the city, each year we would calculate the in-kind services that the city provided. These are services like snow plowing, rent, cleaning of the building, electricity. At the end of each year, we would make what looked like a cash transfer to the center and then return those dollars back to the city's general fund. This amount was usually approximately $2 million. When the nonprofit separated from the City of Arvada, we stopped this practice. In communications with the SCFD, for them to count this in-kind service as qualifying revenue, that means items that are considered support of the nonprofit, they need to see an actual cash transfer going from the City of Arvada to the nonprofit and then being returned to the City of Arvada to pay for these in-kind services. Granted, this looks like we are doubling up. This is a net zero to the general fund of the City of Arvada. Money will go from the city, again, to the nonprofit and be returned immediately from the nonprofit back to the city. This practice, while being a net, again, to the general fund of zero, will allow the nonprofit to count those dollars, qualifying revenue, and should be about a $103,000 benefit to the Arvada Center.
From SC.
From the
SCFD.
SCFD,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, questions from council? Mr. Jones?
So thank you for that and kind of the explanation around the 2.5 million. Because I think you look at that 2.5 million and it looks like that's what, you know, that they need to operate in a deficit, but really it's the 404,000 roughly, or is that the right number?
That is correct, Councilman Jones.
And so I think it's important that, you know, we make that clarification that the SCFD money is a transfer back and forth so that they don't lose those SCFD dollars on an annualized basis. And then also, do we know, based on how they're projecting next year or the next couple of years, how that we had budgeted for about 400 or close to 500,000 just in case, but they came back with 404. Do we know what next year is looking like based on performances that are scheduled, et cetera?
I have not received a revised estimate of their 5-year plan. Their original estimate called for fiscal year 2017 to 2018 to be a little over $300,000 as an operating deficit, and then it moved down to about 160, and then down to about 40, and then in year 5 they were on their own.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Nancy Ford? You may make the motion.
I was also going to encourage everyone to go to the Arvada Center in the 2017-2018 season, because there's lots of great things going on, and the more that we can support it, the less the city will personally have to support it. I move that R17-059, a resolution authorizing the second budget amendment to the 2017 operating and capital budget in the amount of $2,504,568 to fund the 2016 to 2017 fiscal operating deficit of the Arvada Center, and to increase the cash transfer with an equal reimbursement be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for asking to have that taken off the consent agenda, because I agree that just looking at it, it looks like we were funding a deficit of 2.5 million, and that's not what's happened. And thank you, Mr. Archer, for your explanation. Okay, next we have a resolution, R17051, a resolution approving 2017 neighborhood improvement grants in the amount of $9,913.
Wow.
Boy, people got excited there. $9,913 for various neighborhood groups.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Kevin Nichols.
Will walk us through the process and the recommendations for allocation for these funds.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
I was getting pretty excited about that
Yeah.
budget.
I wish.
Okay, let's see here. All right, so I'm here to give you a brief overview of our applications for this year's neighborhood improvement grants and our recommendations for funding. See if we can get this thing working here. It does not seem to be working. So quickly to review the purposes of our grant program. Basically, it is to assist neighborhoods in making physical improvements to their neighborhoods, to engage neighbors, and also to assist in forming or sustaining neighborhood groups.
So we have some criteria that we use in evaluation of the applications, and you might remember that we did quite a bit of work with you all year before last on the criteria, and we ended up changing some things. We increased the emphasis on public benefit and then also gave more weight to the older parts of the city. So the review process is basically we use the grant criteria. We have a staff review team, and this year that team was composed of representatives from the Neighborhood Services Division, the Economic Development Department, and also the Public Works Department. We had 5 applications, which totaled $12,913. Our grant budget is $12,000, and we're recommending funding 4 of the 5 applications for a total of $9,913. So this slide basically shows the scoring that we did of each application using the criteria, and the highest ranking applications are located over on the left side of that spreadsheet. And I'll be going through each one of them with you here. So first of all, we have the North Arvada Middle School PTSA, and they would like to construct a community garden. I think you probably all know where Arvada Middle School is, at 72nd and Pierce. The community garden would be at the north end of that site. They have a $3,000 request to assist with construction of a 28-plot community garden, and this garden would be for the community with just a couple of areas reserved for the school. So it really is for the whole neighborhood and community. Their match requirement is met through volunteer labor. They have also received a $15,000 Healthy Schools grant that is part of the budget, and they have agreed to work with the city in forming a neighborhood group in that area. I might mention that one of the new criteria that we put in a couple years ago was that if a group did not have a neighborhood group, they had to agree to work in good faith with the city in trying to form a group in that area, and that ties into that council's strategic goal of trying to get more neighborhood groups in those parts of the city that do not have them currently. Next, we have the Common Earth Community Garden located at the southwest corner of 72nd and Sims, and this is on property owned by the First United Church of Arvada. But once again, this is a community garden which is for the whole community. You don't have to be a church member to have a plot there. They also have a $3,000 request that would assist with a sign they want to do, a bulletin board, brick walkway. Their match is met through volunteer labor also. They have a grant from the Colorado Garden Foundation, $10,000, and they're also working with us in forming a neighborhood group in that area. Then we have the Homestead Park neighborhood, which is located around 62nd and Fenton Street, and this is a public art project. Also a $3,000 request that would assist with public art and a mural at the southwest corner of the park. This is building on last year's grant. They received some funding from the city to dress up an unsightly entrance to the park by putting down some decorative rock. We've also been working with the neighborhood and improving the lighting in that area. Excel Energy agreed to put in a light at that corner of the park recently. Their match requirement will be met through neighborhood participation in determining the art content and site preparation. And the Homestead Park Neighborhood Group is one of our newest groups, and this project will further strengthen neighborhood involvement. One thing that we're doing with our neighborhood grants is we're willing to give groups a grant 2 years in a row, not 3, but up to 2, and the idea is basically we're trying to really help groups get their feet under them and sustain their efforts, and the Homestead Group has been doing quite a bit of work in organizing and getting their people engaged, and we think this will further strengthen those efforts. We also have the Britton Park neighborhood, which is at Eaton and 68th. And they have a flagpole project. So this is a relatively small request, $913 for the installation of 2 removable flagpoles and 3 flags, a U.S. flag, Colorado flag, and a neighborhood flag. Their match requirement is met through both neighborhood and school participation in design of the neighborhood flag, raising and lowering of the flag on holidays. They have in mind putting up the flags for all national holidays as well as several neighborhood events that they plan throughout the year. So the flags will be put up about 16 different times throughout the year. And once again, this is one of our newest neighborhood groups, and we believe that this project will strengthen the neighborhood engagement efforts that they are undertaking. And then lastly, we have Arvada Gardeners, which is located at 57th and Garrison Street. Their request was for $3,000 to convert 6 garden plots to a small fruit tree orchard and for a crusher and press to process the juice into fruit. Their match requirement would be met through volunteer labor and a cash contribution. Arvada Gardeners has received 3 previous neighborhood grants, and the review committee felt that the other applications had more public and neighborhood benefit, and we do not recommend funding this particular request. And with that, that's all I have for you. I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
I don't think you meant pressed juice into fruit, did you?
What's that?
Did you mean pressed juice into fruit?
Oh, what did I say?
It's written down.
Oh, did I say the opposite? I apologize.
Anyway, I did talk to,
Oh, yes, yeah. That would be kind of a hard process, wouldn't it? Okay, should be fruit into juice.
right? I can make a comment about water into wine, but I won't. I did talk to Bill Easter today, who we all know has been quite active in that community garden there in Old Town, and he did indicate that he certainly understood on behalf of the group the decision. They're not upset with the group for recommending against approval for that community garden. Mr. Pfeiffer?
And talking about timing, because I know that was a topic, and I'm glad you clarified the timing, because I thought there was a space before somebody could come and get more money. But that being said, going to the last one that was not recommended, they've gotten 3 grants. This was a 4th request.
Mm-hmm.
Did we ever discuss the timing between, so if they do the 2 years in a row, do they have to sit out for 2 years before they apply
Yeah,
again?
basically the way we look at it now is they have to at least sit out a 1 year, and I know you had a concern about that, so we are going to be looking at how we address that in future years, whether that should be 1 year or 2 years or what.
Yeah, I just want to make sure when we go through this process, which I love that we do this, but this has evolved, I think this is what, 4th year, 5th year maybe?
Yeah, about 5th, I think.
I like that it's evolved into more community-oriented, public use. There were some that were just HOA-centric before. But I would encourage that we do put more space between, reapplying, because I'd like to see other areas of the city and other communities leverage it. Now, granted, you only got, was it five requests this year? But I know like the Westwoods Dog Park would be interested in this. I'd never seen them apply, there's other special use parks that could probably apply, and I'd like to see that money spread out throughout the entire city versus just the same places.
Okay.
So just some thought to put when you put in timing.
Okay, fair enough.
Nancy Ford?
I just had one question about the public art. Is the Arts and Culture Commission going to be involved in that at all?
Yes, we have been talking to them about coordinating with the public art process, so they will be involved.
Great, thanks.
I see no other questions. We entertain a motion. Mr. Pfeiffer?
I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move that Resolution 17-051, a resolution approving the 2017 Neighborhood Improvement Grant in the amount of $9,913 for various neighborhood groups be adopted.
Motion's for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we have R-17060, a resolution approving the issuance of Public Finance Authority revenue obligations in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $8,500,000 for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, and development of facilities for ECHSA Buildings Corporation and certain other matters related thereto. Mr. Bill Ray, you're going to start out by explaining that the city's really not putting out $8.5 million.
I'm going to let the city attorney do that.
Okay, very good. Mr. Bailey?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Let me give you a little background on what this item is and what it isn't. The Early College of Arvada is a free public charter school located at 4950 West 60th Avenue. This free public charter school is approximately 9 years old and received its charter through the state of Colorado. There are approximately 350 students, grades 6 through 12, that attend this school. The ECA partners with the University of Colorado at Denver to provide students with the opportunity to obtain up to 59 free college credits that can be transferred to public universities. Most of the students that attend the Early College of Arvada are within the first in their families to prepare for college and to actually attend college. Now, this is a charter school, and so the question obviously is, why in the world would the city be involved in this? Well, the federal law basically indicates that before a bond issue can be consummated, that the jurisdiction, the governing body where the school is located, is the one that actually approves the issuance, but the city of Arvada would not be responsible for it. And let me get into those facts and figures. The ECHSA Building Corporation is a Colorado nonprofit corporation described in Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. In order to enter into this financial transaction, the issuance of obligations by the Public Finance Authority for the benefit of the building corporation must be approved by the governing body of the jurisdiction. While the City Council is legally authorized to approve the issuance of the proposed obligations under Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, the City of Arvada does not have any responsibility or liability whatsoever with respect to paying the obligations of this issuance. And I would point council to sections 3 and 4 of the resolution that are before you, and let me read these into the record. Section 3, the issuance of the obligation shall be subject to the approval of the authority of all financing documents related thereto, to which the authority is a party. The city shall have no responsibility or liability whatsoever with respect to the obligations. Section 4, the adoption of this resolution shall not obligate the city or any department thereof, number 1, to provide any financing with respect to the project. Number 2, approve any application or request or take any other action in connection with the planning, approval, permit, or other action necessary with respect to the project. And 3, make any contribution or advance any funds whatsoever to the authority or the borrower. And number 4, take any further action with respect to the authority. So what's before the council tonight is, again, this resolution that would authorize these obligations to be issued, but it's very clear in the document that council would be approving, should you decide to do so, that the city would have no obligations to do that. Now, the question is, what is going to be utilized with these $8.5 million? The ECA wishes to fund the acquisition, construction, and development of its building through a tax-exempt bond issue for the benefit of the building corporation, as the mayor indicated earlier, in an amount not to exceed $8.5 million. The proceeds of the obligation will be utilized to acquire the existing site and buildings of the Early College of Arvada, to fund renovations to the existing site, including a new HVAC system, 3 new STEM labs, new walls and classroom structures, roof repairs and other repair work, and also to fund the construction of a field house nearby, as well as to fund the issuance costs of the obligations. And I will tell the council that I've enjoyed working with Mr. T.O. Owens, who is the representative for this particular Early College of Arvada this evening. I'm going to invite Mr. Owens to stand up and talk a little bit about the underlying issue and talk a little bit about the school. I also wanted to make sure that council was aware of the report of the public hearing that's also in the packet. And there was a public hearing on this that was held on May 18th at 4 o'clock in the boardroom at 4905 West 60th Avenue. And Lacey Knowles, who's the hearing officer, indicated that no persons actually showed up to present any comments, either orally or in writing, at the public hearing itself. So with that brief background, I'm going to invite Mr. T.O. Owens to address the council further on this matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. So I come here frequently, and I wear a lot of hats, but I'm here tonight as the as treasurer of the board for the Early College of Arvada. As Mr. Daly said, we're 350 students-ish. We graduated 32 kids this year. The thing that I'm most proud of is that every student that has ever graduated from our school has been accepted to college. And for 32 students, that seems like maybe not a big deal, but we're 61% free and reduced lunch, 71% first-time college goers. To be able to reach that population is extraordinary. And the work that we do, I'm very proud of. If anybody's had 10 minutes with me in the last 3 years, they've heard me bend their ear about the virtues of the school and what we do. We have 31 members of staff, 9 of those have PhDs. So we offer a different kind of offering than lots of other schools. We don't offer dual enrollment. Our teachers, our professors are actually adjunct professors to the University of Colorado in Denver. It's just an experience that lots of kids don't get to have. And the ability for us to own our building, to provide, actually we're going to build 4 STEM labs as it turns out, and they are state of the art. I'm a data architect by trade, but I'm a geek at heart, right? These things are beautiful. There won't be a finer STEM lab in the county when we're done. We'll put signs in the front, but what we're going to provide is the stability, knowing that this is going to be the home for this school for generations to come. It's important to these students. It's important to this community. There are other schools that certainly serve the community in that area, but we serve these students that are kind of special and kind of different, and no other school in that community serves them in the way that we do, and we're pretty proud of that. So we're asking for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. How will the bonds be repaid?
Sure. Unlike a Jeffco school, for instance, whose total funding is somewhere around $13,000 per student, we receive only PPR from the state. So we receive about $7,800 per student. We have a little Title I funding, but it doesn't amount to a ton. So we end up at about $8,200 per student is what we fund. From that money, we have to pay our instructors, we have to pay for all of our materials. We charge 0 fees to any of the students that walk in the door. So we really do everything out of that $8,200 per student. So, from the revenue from our PPR, we'll fund our bond obligation.
Okay. Mark McGough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the city attorney and then one for Mr. Owens. First of all, I'm wondering, just by way of background, do you know what the rationale might have been back in 1986 to require the governing jurisdiction, to approve such obligations?
That's a great question. I spoke to our outside bond counsel, D. Weiser at Butler Snow, and asked him about that. I said, it's been so long since I've heard of one of these TEFRA notices. It's been, decades, literally. He says, yeah, I can't give you a precise answer other than to say it's just a requirement that's contained within the IRS code, but I can't tell you what the rationale was behind it.
So other than adding a signature to it, it's just simply an acknowledgement that the city has been notified and is aware of what's going on within its jurisdiction.
That's my understanding, and the resolution is very clear that the city has no obligations for these.
Okay. And Mr. Owens, I'm wondering, I don't see any impediments to taking a positive action on this, but what is the recourse of early college if we should not approve this? Could approval come from Adams County, where you're also, you're part of that jurisdiction?
I think I should defer to Mr. Daly because I don't know the answer to that question. What Mr. Weiser explained to me is it would be the city that it was located. If this was an unincorporated area, but since it falls within the city of Arvada, that's why we are being asked to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Pfeiffer?
Well, I need to expand upon that because I think it's a little confusing. So why would we do it, would be my question. So let me give you an example. Jefferson County has charter schools all over the place. I don't see those charter schools coming to us and asking us to do bonds for them. So could you explain the difference why this one unique school is coming to the city versus the other charter schools and how they follow their process?
So the explanation that I would give the council is that this is a charter school that's chartered by the state and not by Jeffco. And so I think therein lies a difference. And I think Mr. Owens tried to address that a little bit, but the reason the city's being asked to do it is this is a little bit different animal in the sense that it's been chartered by the state, not by Jeffco.
I think that's critical to make that clear on why, we're not doing all the other charter schools.
Well, I would, what I'm trying to say in a different way is, if it was a charter school that was chartered under Jeffco schools, then I would expect that Jeffco schools would be dealing with it, but because this is under the state, that's the explanation that I have been given.
Yes, my understanding is too. It's just a different charter process from what it is through chartering through a school district.
So would it be difficult to have the state approve this bond versus us? I mean, it kind of seems interesting that Jeffco would do, their schools, which is the approving body, the governing body, and the state approved this charter, but yet the state doesn't say anything about it. It's just a comment. I don't think we can change state laws or practices, but it just seems interesting that way. And I want to make sure we're clear that if the other charter schools come, we're not signing whatever papers if they're chartered differently, I would assume.
Yes, I perfectly understand the inquiry, and I would expect that if a charter school was created under Jefferson's school system, that they would be the ones that would approve that.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
I would just point Mr. Pfeiffer to this is an IRS code issue. It's not a state issue. This is an internal revenue issue.
Yeah, my question is who approved the charter? It's just like Jefferson County approved the charter for their charter schools. If the state approved that, then why doesn't the state support the bond like Jefferson County Public Schools would support their charters? That's just the clarifying differences.
I agree, but again,
regardless if it's a federal or
I think
not.
I think it's an IRS issue, not a state issue.
Yeah.
And as we all know, IRS issues are always abundantly clear and logical as to why they're done the way they are. Mr. Marriott?
If there's no more questions, I'd like to make a motion.
You may make a motion.
I move that R 17-060, a resolution approving the issuance of Public Finance Authority revenue obligations in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $8,500,000 for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, and development of facilities for early college or ECHSA Building Corporation and certain other matters relating thereto be approved. And I also want to make a comment on this motion. I think, as a city, we support schools lots of different ways. I know us members of council make appearances at schools, read on reading days, bike to work days, as well as then support the schools in many other ways with school resource officers and other things. And I think this is, while very unique, this is a great way for us to support a school that's here in another school that's here in Arvada. I think one of the most unique things about this situation is this is real school choice. This is very different. And I think given what we've heard from Mr. Owens and from my own personal experiences with the school, this is a good choice that people have within our community, makes our community better. So I'll be supporting it wholeheartedly and would urge everyone else to as well.
Okay, motions for approval? Based upon the representations of legal counsel, that we don't have any financial exposure with this. We've talked with Brian Archer. It's not going to affect our bond ratings or anything of that nature, so I fully support it as well. That passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good luck, Mr. Owens. I hope you do well with it, and We look forward to many, many years of success. Next, we have one ordinance on first reading.
Yeah, I move that Council Bill 17-019, an ordinance amending various sections of Article 3, Sales and Use Tax of Chapter 98, Taxation of the Arvada City Code, be approved on first reading, ordered, published in full, and public hearing date to be set for June 19, 2017 at 6:30 p.m.
Motions for approval on first reading. Votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, I'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 17-015, an ordinance vacating an emergency access and ingress-egress easement on Lot 5A, Arvada Energy Center, Amendment Number 2, Lou Tech Facility, 5305 Zinnian Street. Mr. Bill Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Community Development Director Rita McConnell will lead this conversation.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The request is for a vacation of an emergency access and ingress-egress easement to accommodate the construction of a new building on the site. The site originally anticipated 2 buildings with accesses serving both. One building is now proposed, and the access easement interferes with the building location. The easement proposed to be vacated is entirely within the property and does not affect adjacent properties. Emergency and all other access is provided via Zenon Street. This vacation is in conformance with the approved preliminary development plan, as well as the comprehensive plan and the land development code. Staff supports this request. Planning Commission voted 5 in favor with 1 absent. There was no opposition to the vacation at the Planning Commission meeting. I did receive the affidavit of mailing, and staff did misstate the date of the City Council hearing for June 6th rather than June 5th in the written notice. Both the newspaper publication and the sign posting indicated that the correct date for the hearing was June 5th. The Land Development Code does provide for 3 types of notices. 1 is the written notice, 2 is the posted notice, and 3 is the published notice. Section 335 of the Land Development Code states that minor defects in a notice shall not impair the notice or invalidate the proceedings pursuant to that notice, and failure of a party to receive notice shall not invalidate any subsequent action if a bona fide attempt has been made to comply with the applicable notice requirements. The same section speaks to the determination of whether substantial compliance with the notice requirements has been met. We do believe that the successful posting and publication notice results in substantial compliance, and that we shall proceed with the hearing tonight if council agrees. The applicant, Ms. Jeannie Fielding, is available for questions.
Very good. Does anyone wish to testify on this matter? And if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Anything you would like to add on behalf of the application?
No, I think that, I didn't know that we would not have our little PowerPoint, but basically, I'm here representing Lou Tech. This is a cleanup of a site that they've purchased along with the adjacent site. There we go.
There we go.
From a previous site approval process, and so we're cleaning up this existing 24-foot emergency access way for our new development, and we'll, along with this, just to give you, let's see, I think I have the, no. They have also purchased the adjacent site and will be vacating the property line in between those, and we will be doing a new emergency access lane that then will be reflective of our site development plan. So this is our proposed site. So that is on the left-hand portion of the property.
Okay, anything else from you?
No.
Okay. Anyone else like to testify on this matter for or against? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open it up for City Council questions or action. Mr. Marriott.
There's not any questions. I'd like to make a motion.
There are no questions.
Okay. Move that Council Bill 17-015, an ordinance vacating an emergency access and ingress-egress easement on Lot 5A, Arvada Energy Center, Amendment Number 2, Lou Tech Facility, 5305 Zenon Street be approved on final reading, numbered 4593, and ordered published by title only. This motion is based on the findings of fact adopted by the Planning Commission.
Do we need any further findings that we believe adequate notice has been given? Or?
That's certainly up to council if you want to include a provision that indicates that it's conditioned upon no one showing up tomorrow night, for as Ms. McConnell indicated, the written notice that was mailed out said June 6th. If you want to include that, you can certainly do that.
Mr. Daly, I think probably not necessary, but with an abundance of caution is probably not a bad idea. So I'd like to add to that motion that this approval is conditional upon nobody showing up in opposition of this proposal tomorrow, June 6th, as was stated in the written notice.
Okay, motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Congratulations. I don't anticipate anybody being here tomorrow night, but we do want to err on, and I apologize for the, apparently our staff made the notice. Is that right? That
No.
It was, oh no, it was the
No,
applicant?
the staff, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly, it was
okay.
the applicant.
Okay, but anyway, it wasn't caught, but again, I don't think that there's going to be any issue long-term on this one. Okay, next, I'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 17016, an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to allow for a daycare use, Little Seeds Academy, 5939 West 64th Avenue. Mr. Bill Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'll ask Community Development Director McConnell to discuss this matter.
Mayor, council members. The proposal is for a daycare facility. There was a previous conditional use permit for similar uses since 1953, but the most recent conditional use lapsed more than a year ago, requiring the current owners of the property to come before you for a new conditional use permit. There are no exterior modifications proposed. Staff supports this request as it complies with the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. Planning Commission voted 5 in favor with 1 absent and an added condition to ensure that there would be adequate parking for the employees. There was no opposition to this request at Planning Commission. William Tucker, Planner 1, and John Ferruzzi, Transportation Engineer, are present for staff questions. I have received the affidavit of mailing and posting log, and those are in order. The applicant, Mr. Tracy Paul, is here for a presentation.
Very good. Mr. Paul? Mr. Daly, is this quasi-judicial?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, if you'll raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. You may make your presentation.
Basically, just as she said, we're keeping the property basically the same. We're updating the inside. Obviously, it's been the same since 50 whatever. So very minor changes. Just need to get the use permit so we can operate as a daycare.
Very good. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open it up for City Council questions or action. Ms. Ford, you're first.
Mr. Paul, I just had one question. You mentioned that you were going to redo the fence. Do you have a date for that?
You know, it's actually in process right now as we speak.
Okay, perfect.
And I've been in touch with all of the neighbors. They're super happy, and that's what we want.
Good. Mr. Pfeiffer?
I'll go ahead and make a motion if there's not any other questions.
You may.
I move that Council Bill 17-016, an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to allow for a daycare use, Little Seeds Academy, 5939 West 64th Avenue, be approved, subject to the attached updated condition of approval on the final reading number 4594 and order published by title only. This motion is based on the finding of fact adopted by the Planning Commission.
Motions for approval of the conditional use permit. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry that we've got these requirements, but when there's a gap of time, that conditional use permit goes away and you have to come back in. So
totally understand. Thank
very
you.
good.
My wife went there when she was a little girl. It's a long time ago.
It's been long enough that I don't think you have a conflict of interest.
No.
Very good.
No.
Next, we have Council Bill 17017, an ordinance rezoning certain land within the City of Arvada Old Town Commons Townhomes from City of Arvada RM Residential Multifamily to PUDR Planning Unit Development Residential 23.5 dwelling dwelling units per acre and amending the official zoning maps of the city of Arvada, Colorado, 5417 and 5421 Allison Street. It's my understanding that we're going to make a motion to vacate on this matter. So I would entertain a motion. Mr. Marriott.
I move that the public hearing on Council Bill CB 17-017, an ordinance rezoning certain land within the city of Arvada, Old Town Commons townhouses from City of Arvada RM, residential multifamily, to PUDR, planned unit development residential, 23.5 dwelling units per acre, and amending the official zoning maps of the city of Arvada, Colorado, 5417 and 5421 Allison Street be vacated.
Motions to vacate the public hearing. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Our final public hearing, Council Bill 17018, an ordinance authorizing the second amended and restated intergovernmental agreement between the City of Arvada and Westtown Metropolitan District, formerly known as Hometown Metropolitan District Number 1. Mr. Bill Ray. Mr. Chris Daly.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Council will recall that back on May 15th of this year, that council approved a second amended and restated service plan for the what's now called the Westtown Metropolitan District, formerly known as the Hometown Metropolitan Districts numbers 1 through 4. And there's been a little bit of a history on this back in 2008 and 2009 and then in 2015 over this economic time period where there were some problems in getting development going. There's been some reiterations of this metropolitan district. Council will recall that when you approved the second amended and restated service plan on May 15th, that under the city code, the enforcement mechanism to make sure that the service plan that's presented to the city is actually enforceable is done via an intergovernmental agreement pursuant to Section 9111, subparent 11 of the Arvada City Code. And so what's happening tonight is the presentation to the council of this intergovernmental agreement with Westtown Metropolitan District that essentially incorporates the provisions of the service plan that has been restated and amended now as Westtown. And now we're putting that into an intergovernmental agreement, and the request of the staff and certainly of the applicant is the council approve the intergovernmental agreement as it's been provided. It's a standard intergovernmental agreement that we've used in the past with many different special districts within the city, and certainly with this particular property.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to address council on this? Is there someone from the applicant?
I'm not sure that the applicant's here tonight.
Okay. Does any other individual of the public wish to testify on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open it up for council questions or action. David Jones.
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion.
You may.
I move that Council Bill 17-018, an ordinance authorizing the Second Amendment and restated intergovernmental agreement between the City of Arvada and Westtown Metropolitan District, formerly known as Hometown Metropolitan District Number 1, be approved on final reading, numbered 4595, and ordered published by title only.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. That concludes our public hearings. We now have another opportunity for public comment if any member of the public would like to address City Council at this time. Seeing none, I'll close that. Move on to City Council reports. Mr. Jones.
I have just one item to report, actually, to share with you. It's kind of exciting for me. Next Monday, I'll actually have the opportunity to meet with Secretary Chow, the Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C., with President Trump's Chief of Staff, Michael Britt, to speak specifically about the Jefferson Parkway, and hoping to get their help to nudge the FAA along so that we can move this process forward and start moving dirt for the Jefferson Parkway.
Great. Very good. Mr. McGough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to report very quickly on an event that occurred this past weekend. That was at the Two Ponds Wildlife Refuge. Arvada is very fortunate to have this urban wildlife refuge, immediately accessible to most of our city. This is 25 years that Two Ponds has been in existence, and for those who may not be aware of the history of the wildlife refuge as it came into existence, that would be a worthwhile review, because it was a difficult thing, but it's a wonderful wildlife refuge. Been there for 25 years, as I mentioned. It's a place where there are a lot of educational programs. It's a place to view wildlife, especially birds, as we saw them this last Saturday. And we had our eyes peeled for the resident bobcat of the wildlife refuge, but he chose not to show himself on Saturday, which was fine with me. But it's a wonderful place for the, as I mentioned, for the education programs, especially for school kids, the viewing of wildlife, and of course, as any wildlife refuge, it's a great place for reflection and contemplation. The event, the culmination of the event was the dedication of a new flagpole for the refuge, where the flag can be flown at significant events throughout the year. The flagpole ceremony was designed and sponsored by the founders and friends of Two Ponds. The mayor did come and speak to the assembled group, and it was a pretty good sized group. And the ceremony itself was made formal by the color guard of the American Legion. So I'd encourage council members and anyone in the city, if you have not seen Two Ponds Wildlife Refuge, it's a great time to do it throughout the summer. And I should mention, I did lead a hike in the refuge, and there were many people on the hike who mentioned that they've lived in Arvada all their lives, or for a very long time, drive past it on 80th Avenue frequently, but had never been inside before. So there were many newcomers, old-timers, but newcomers to the wildlife refuge on Saturday. It was a great event.
Thank you. Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McGough, for doing those events and doing those hikes, because I think that adds a quality of life that people treasure in the city of Arvada.
Thank you.
Just some updates I wanted to share with the council and staff. Being the secretary of the Denver Regional Council of Governments, we have picked our recruitment firm for our new executive director, and I convinced it's my subcommittee, so I chair it, but you know, Herb Atchison, the mayor of Westminster, likes to take over things. I convinced him, I'm sure he'll watch tonight, I convinced him to do a industrial psychologist. It took a lot of convincing, but we will have one engaged. At the state level, I've been on the RFP committee for the FirstNet option to look at opting out of the program, and if the state was to do its own versus going into the federal program. That RFP was concluded the first phase of it last week, so I spent some time down at the Capitol. And then Wednesday night I leave out for my second round at the FCC. So I think the topic there will be net neutrality. So,
very
fun
good
stuff.
Okay, Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two items tonight, just to acknowledge that you do have a business meeting scheduled for July 19th, and as we had no pressing items for the workshop format, it would be my request that we cancel the meeting for next Monday, June 12th.
Do I have a motion to cancel, Mr. Marriott?
I move that we cancel the workshop for June 12th.
Yeah, that was a Freudian. We're not canceling Mr. Marriott, we're just canceling the.
Could we put
All
that to
votes
a
are
vote?
cast.
Could we put that to a vote?
Mr. Marriott survives. The workshop for the 12th is hereby canceled, except for Mr. Allard, who will be here. Mr. Daly, anything you want to bring to our attention? You want to talk about the Rockies and what a great season they're having? Any of that good stuff? Very good. We stand adjourned.